Hey everyone! Welcome back to the English Connect podcast, the place where we learn English through conversations that actually matter. I'm your host, Sophia, and I'm here with the wonderful Jason.
Hey, Sophia. Hey, everyone. Okay, I have to start today with a confession.
Oh, I love when you open with a confession. Go ahead.
So last January, I made a list of goals. Big, ambitious, exciting goals. Learn Spanish, go to the gym 5 days a week, read 30 books, wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, meditate for 30 minutes daily, write in a journal, cook healthy meals at home. All of it, starting January 1st.
Wow, that is quite the list.
By January 8th, I had done none of it. Zero. I had already completely abandoned all of it.
Jason, I feel like you just described every person listening right now.
Right? And the worst part was, I felt terrible about myself. Like, I can't even keep a promise to myself for 8 days. What is wrong with me?
And nothing was wrong with you. The goals weren't the problem. The approach was the problem.
Which is what today is all about.
Exactly. Because here's what we get wrong about success. We think it comes from massive, dramatic transformation, the big resolution, the radical overhaul, the total reinvention. But the research, the evidence, and the lived experience of people who have actually built remarkable lives all point to something very different.
Small, consistent, unglamorous habits. The kind that don't make for impressive Instagram posts, the kind that look boring from the outside, but are quietly, invisibly compounding into something life-changing on the inside. And we are going to break all of that down today in a way that is practical, relatable, and actually useful, not just inspiring, useful.
Because inspiration without a system just becomes guilt, and we are not here to make anyone feel guilty.
We are here to help you actually change things. So here's what we have lined up. First, Jason and I will have a deep, honest conversation about why small habits work, why we resist them, and how to make them actually stick.
Then we'll break down 5 vocabulary words and phrases to level up your English.
And we'll close with a challenge so specific and so small that you have absolutely no excuse not to try it today.
Before we begin, if this podcast has ever helped your English or your thinking, please hit subscribe and leave us a comment. Your engagement genuinely helps us reach more people who need these conversations.
And here's our question for you today. What's one habit you've tried and failed to build? Drop it in the comments, because this episode might be exactly what finally makes it click.
Let's get into it. Okay, Jason. Let's start with what I think is the most important question. Why do we always go big? Why is the instinct always, I need to completely overhaul my life, rather than, I need to make one small change?
I think it's because big goals feel exciting. There's a rush that comes with imagining the new you, the version of yourself who wakes up at 5, meditates, works out, eats perfectly, reads prolifically, and somehow also has great skin.
The 5 a.m. fantasy person.
We all have that person living in our imagination, and the vision is genuinely motivating, but only for about 72 hours. Then real life shows up.
And real life is tired and has leftover pizza in the fridge and a very comfortable bed.
Exactly, and suddenly the gap between who you are and who you said you'd be feels enormous, and enormous gaps are discouraging.
So the very ambition that was supposed to motivate you ends up deflating you.
Right, and then we do that thing where we wait for the right conditions to come back around. New year, new month, Monday, birthday, I'll start fresh then.
And the cycle repeats. Big declaration, brief enthusiasm, quiet abandonment, guilt, wait for the next reset 8.
I have run that cycle probably a dozen times in my adult life.
Most of us have. And it's not a character flaw, it's a design flaw. We're trying to run the wrong program.
So what's the right program?
The right program starts from a completely different question. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve, which makes you focus on the destination, you ask, who do I want to become? And then you ask, what is the smallest possible action that the person I want to become would do consistently?
That's a completely different starting point.
Completely, because identity and habits are deeply connected. Your habits are not just things you do, they are evidence you collect about who you are.
Can you unpack that?
Sure, every time you go for a walk, even a short one, you are casting a vote for the identity, I am someone who takes care of my body. Every time you read one page of a book, you are casting a vote for, I am someone who values learning. Those votes accumulate.
So habits aren't really about the action itself. They're about the story you're building about yourself through that action.
Exactly. And this is why small habits are actually more powerful than big ones in the beginning, because a small habit that you actually do creates evidence. A big habit that you abandon creates the opposite, evidence that you're someone who doesn't follow through.
Wow, so the failed resolution doesn't just leave you without the habit, it actively chips away at your self-trust.
Every time, which is why starting embarrassingly small is not a compromise. It's actually the smarter strategy.
Let's talk about what embarrassingly small actually looks like, because I think people hear start small and they think that means setting a goal of going to the gym 3 times a week instead of 5.
Right, that's still big. Embarrassingly small means if you want to start exercising, your habit for week 1 is put on your workout clothes. That's it. You don't have to work out, just put on the clothes.
Are you serious?
Completely serious, because what you're actually doing is building the neural pathway, the habit loop. You're making the beginning of the behavior automatic before you worry about the rest of it.
So you're removing the biggest obstacle first, which is starting.
Exactly. Starting is almost always harder than continuing. Have you ever noticed that once you're actually at the gym, you don't want to leave after 2 minutes? It's getting there that's the battle.
100%. The activation energy, the effort to begin, is the hardest part.
So you reduce activation energy to near zero. The clothes are already on. Now getting on the treadmill is the easier next step. Then 10 minutes becomes 20, but you never force it. You just reduce friction and let the behavior expand naturally.
I've actually experienced this without realizing it. I started making my bed every morning about 2 years ago, which sounds so basic, and somehow it became this anchor for my whole day.
Yes, tell me about that, because I think it illustrates something really important.
So I read somewhere that making your bed is your first completed task of the day, and completing a task, however small, gives you a tiny sense of accomplishment and control, and that feeling carries forward.
The psychological term for this is a keystone habit, a single habit that creates a cascade effect on other behaviors.
Keystone habit. I love that term. Like the keystone in an arch, it holds everything else in place.
Exactly that. Research has found that certain habits are disproportionately powerful. They don't just change one behavior, they trigger a chain reaction. Exercise is a classic keystone habit. When people start exercising regularly, even mildly, they often spontaneously start eating better, sleeping better, drinking less, and being more productive.
Without trying to change all those things separately?
Without deliberately targeting them at all, it's like the habit becomes a signal that ripples outward. I'm someone who takes care of myself, and that identity starts influencing choices across the whole day.
So you don't need to attack 10 habits at once. You find your keystone and start there.
For many people, it's exercise, sleep, or morning routine, but it's different for everyone. The question is, which one habit, if I built it, would make everything else slightly easier?
That's a powerful diagnostic question.
Write that down, everyone.
Okay, let's talk about something that I think trips people up even when they start small: consistency. Because it's easy to do something once, twice, even 10 times, but how do you make it automatic? How does it become something you just do, like brushing your teeth?
Such an important question. And brushing your teeth is actually a perfect example to learn from, because almost nobody has to motivate themselves to do it. Nobody wakes up and says, "Ugh, do I really have to brush my teeth today?"
Because it's just what you do.
Right, it's completely automatic, and it got there through repetition, but also through something called habit stacking. It's anchored to another behavior. You brush your teeth after a specific trigger, waking up, finishing a meal.
So the trigger is what makes it consistent, not just willpower.
Willpower is one of the most unreliable resources we have. It fluctuates with sleep, stress, blood sugar, mood. It's not a stable foundation for a habit. Triggers are far more reliable.
So how do you use habit stacking deliberately?
You link the new habit to an existing one. After I pour my morning coffee, I will read for 5 minutes. After I sit down at my desk, I will write 3 sentences. After I get into bed, I will do 2 minutes of deep breathing. The existing habit becomes the cue.
So you're not adding something to your day from scratch, you're anchoring it to something that already exists.
And that's so much easier for your brain because you've already removed the question of when will I do this? The answer is built in.
I want to talk about something that I think is the silent killer of habit building, and that's the all or nothing mindset.
Oh, this one is so important. Tell me what you mean.
Okay, so you've been going to the gym every Monday for 4 weeks. You're proud of yourself. Then one Monday, something comes up. You miss it. And in your head, suddenly the streak is broken. The habit is ruined. Might as well start over next month.
I've already messed up, so I might as well go all the way.
Yes! Like you ate 1 cookie, so the diet is over. You skipped 1 day of journaling, so the habit is dead. It's catastrophic thinking applied to self-improvement.
And it's completely backwards, because one missed day doesn't break a habit. What breaks a habit is missing twice in a row.
Where does that idea come from?
It's a principle that researchers who study behavioral change keep arriving at. The first miss is human. The second miss is the beginning of a new pattern. So the rule becomes never miss twice.
Never miss twice. Not never miss, just never miss twice.
That reframe changes everything because never miss is a perfect standard and perfection is unsustainable, but never miss twice is a recovery standard. You're allowed to be imperfect. You're just responsible for the comeback.
So you build the response to failure into the system itself.
And that's what makes it sustainable long-term, because long-term is the only timeline that matters when we're talking about habits.
Let's talk about the math of this, because I think people don't realize what small, consistent behavior actually adds up to over time. Like intellectually, we know it compounds, but what does that actually mean?
Okay, let me give you a concrete example that always stops me in my tracks. If you read just 10 pages of a book every single day, do you know how many books you'll finish in a year?
If a book is around 250 pages,
You'll finish approximately 14 to 15 books.
in 1 year, just from 10 pages a day?
10 pages, which takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Almost anyone can find 15 minutes, but most people say, I don't have time to read, because they're thinking they need an hour or 2 hours or a dedicated reading session.
But 15 minutes a day, compounded across a year, is actually significant.
And 15 minutes of Spanish practice every day for a year? You'd be conversational. 15 minutes of walking every day? That's nearly 90 hours of movement by year's end.
The math is genuinely shocking when you actually calculate it.
Because we're terrible at intuiting compound growth. We think linearly. A little bit today doesn't matter. But nature doesn't work linearly. It compounds, and so does behavior.
There's a concept I love for this, the idea of getting 1% better every day.
Yes, if you improve by just 1% each day, after 1 year, you're not 100% better, you're 37 times better, because each day's improvement is built on top of all the previous ones.
37 times better from 1% daily improvement? That number is almost hard to believe.
It's mathematically accurate, and the reverse is also true. If you get 1% worse each day, you decline to nearly 0. Small things in either direction compound enormously.
So every small choice is actually a bigger deal than it appears.
Every single one, which sounds heavy, but I find it incredibly empowering because it means you don't need a dramatic moment of transformation. You don't need to hit rock bottom. You don't need to wait for January 1st. You just need today's 1%.
I want to talk about something practical that I think really helps: tracking. Because I've found that simply keeping a record of a habit makes me want to continue it.
Yes, and there's real psychology behind this. When you track a habit visually, crossing off a day on a calendar, filling in a chart, moving a paperclip from one jar to another, you create what's called a habit streak, and humans have a powerful aversion to breaking a streak.
You don't want to break the chain.
Exactly. The visual representation makes the abstract concrete. You can see your consistency, and seeing it makes you protective of it.
I started habit tracking last year for the first time, literally just a simple app where I check a box each day, and it works. I feel weirdly reluctant to leave a box unchecked.
That's your brain's natural tendency toward completion working in your favor. You've gamified the habit, and that's not trivial. It's a feature, not a bug.
Let's zoom out for a second, because I want to address something that I think holds people back from even starting the small habit conversation. And that's the voice that says, but I want big results. I want success. I want to achieve something significant. How does making my bed or reading 10 pages get me there?
Such an honest question. And here's my honest answer. The small habits are not the destination. They are the vehicle. What they actually build, beyond the specific behavior, is the identity, the discipline, and the self-trust to take on bigger and bigger challenges.
So someone who builds the habit of writing 3 sentences a day isn't just building a writing habit.
They're building the evidence that they are a person who shows up consistently, and a person who shows up consistently can eventually write a book. Not because one day they suddenly had the talent or the time, but because they had already proven to themselves through 1,000 small daily acts that they are someone who follows through.
The big success is downstream of the small habit, not separate from it.
Every time. The marathon runner trained with daily runs. The successful business owner built daily disciplines around finance, communication, learning. The author wrote daily, even on days when it felt pointless.
We only see the big result. We don't see the 10,000 small acts that made it possible.
And that invisibility is actually part of why small habits feel underwhelming. The compounding is happening underground. It's real, it's working, but you can't see it yet. And that's where most people quit right before the results surface.
They stop digging right before they hit water.
Right before, which is heartbreaking and completely avoidable if you just trust the system long enough.
How long is long enough? Because that's the practical question people have.
The old myth was 21 days to form a habit, but more recent research suggests it's closer to 66 days on average, and it varies enormously depending on the habit, the person, and the complexity of the behavior.
So about 2 months before something starts to feel truly automatic.
On average. But here's the important thing. You don't have to wait until it feels automatic to start seeing benefits. The benefits begin on day 1. The first time you do the thing, you get a small dose of self-respect. And that's worth showing up for even before the habit is fully formed.
A small dose of self-respect. I love that framing.
Because ultimately, and I want to land on this, the deepest reason to build small habits has nothing to do with productivity or achievement. It's about the relationship you have with yourself.
Say more about that.
When you consistently do what you said you would do, even if it's small, even if nobody sees it, you build an internal trust, a quiet confidence, a sense of, I am someone who follows through. And that feeling, that relationship with yourself, is the foundation of every kind of success, personal, professional, creative, relational.
Because you can't build anything lasting on a foundation of broken promises to yourself.
And you can build almost anything on a foundation of kept ones.
Even if the promises start out tiny?
Especially if they start out tiny, because small kept promises become medium promises become large ones, and one day you look back and realize that the person you've become, capable, consistent, self-trusting, was built one tiny daily decision at a time.
I need to go make my bed, right after this episode.
It's already made, Jason. You told me you do it every day.
Oh, right. See? It works.
All right, everyone. Let's break down 5 essential words and phrases from today's conversation. These will help you talk about habits, growth, and success in fluent, natural English.
First up, compound.
Meaning, To compound means to grow or increase over time by building on what was previously added. Compounding is what happens when small gains don't just add to each other, they multiply. In finance, you earn interest on your interest. In habits, today's improvement is built on top of yesterday's, making growth accelerate over time. The power of compounding is that small, consistent inputs eventually produce disproportionately large outputs.
Example sentence. She didn't see dramatic results in the first month of her daily practice, but she understood the power of compounding. She knew that consistency now would multiply into significant progress by the end of the year.
Number 2, keystone habit.
Meaning, a keystone habit is a single routine or behavior that has an outsized positive impact, not just on the specific behavior itself, but on other areas of your life as a ripple effect. Like the keystone in a stone arch that holds all the other stones in place, a keystone habit creates structural stability and triggers a cascade of other positive changes.
For him, daily exercise was a keystone habit. Once he started running in the mornings, he naturally began eating better, sleeping more regularly, and feeling more focused at work, without consciously trying to change any of those things.
Number 3, habit stacking.
Meaning, habit stacking is the practice of linking a new habit to an existing one by using the existing behavior as a trigger or cue. Instead of finding a new time or context for the habit, you attach it to something you already do automatically, making the new behavior far easier to remember and perform.
She used habit stacking to finally build a journaling routine. Every day after her morning coffee, she wrote for 5 minutes. By linking the new habit to an existing ritual, it became second nature within weeks.
Number 4, activation energy.
Borrowed from chemistry, activation energy in the context of habits refers to the effort, motivation, or friction required to begin a behavior. High activation energy means it's hard to start. Reducing activation energy means making the starting point easier, simpler, or more automatic, so that beginning the habit requires minimal effort or willpower.
She reduced the activation energy of her morning workout by sleeping in her gym clothes. By the time she woke up, the biggest obstacle was already removed, and getting out the door took almost no effort.
And finally, number 5, all or nothing mindset.
Meaning, an all-or-nothing mindset is a thought pattern where something must be either perfect or not worth doing at all. In the context of habits, it shows up when one missed day feels like total failure, leading a person to abandon the entire effort rather than simply continuing. It's a black and white way of thinking that treats imperfection as defeat.
Example sentence. His all-or-nothing mindset had sabotaged his diet attempts for years. One slice of cake, and he'd declared the week ruined. When he finally learned to say, one imperfect day doesn't undo consistent effort, everything changed.
Jason, this conversation has genuinely fired me up. I want to go stack some habits right now.
Same. I feel like this episode could actually change something for people if they let it.
But only if they act on it. And so here is your challenge. Are you ready?
This is the most specific challenge we've ever given.
I want it to be so clear that you can do it before you go to sleep tonight. Here it is. Choose one, just one, small habit that you want to build, and write down the following 3 things.
1. What is the habit? Keep it small. 2 minutes, 1 page, 5 push-ups, 1 sentence, embarrassingly small.
2. What existing behavior will you attach it to? After coffee? Before bed? After sitting at your desk?
3. How will you track it? A calendar, an app, a notebook, a jar of paper clips. Pick one tracking method right now.
That's it. 3 things written down tonight. Because a habit written down is 3 times more likely to be started than one that stays in your head.
And then come back to the comments and tell us, what's your habit? What are you stacking it on? And how are you tracking it? We want to see it. We want to hold you to it.
Because community accountability is one of the most powerful habit-reinforcing tools there is. You're not just making a promise to yourself, you're making it to us and to everyone reading the comments.
And in 30 days, come back and give us an update. We are genuinely invested in what happens for you.
If this episode helped you, share it with someone who is stuck in the cycle of big goals and early abandonment. This might be the conversation that finally breaks that pattern for them.
Subscribe if you haven't yet. We are here every week with conversations that go deep on English and on life.
And before we go, your final thought for today. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Build the system. Trust the system, show up for the system, and one day you will look up and realize the life you were dreaming of was quietly being built all along, one small habit at a time.
Start today, start small, start now.
This is Sophia,
And this is Jason.
signing off from the English Connect podcast.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep showing up, even when it's small, even when it's imperfect, even when no one is watching. Especially then.